me to speak today. I'm definitely the old timer in the room. So I was a naive 26-year-old that answered a blind ad in the Salina Journal and became executive director of Salina Child Care Association 37 years ago. So Salina Child Care was the first child care center in Salina back in 1967 when you just didn't have things like child care. Women were still working, but relatives were caring for children. And a group of women in our community decided that we needed to have some kind of a child care program. And so we opened in a house on Iron Street, and there were 3 kids, and it was big press, because there was actually out-of-home child care. So in that very first year, I've looked back, and in 1967, when that group of community people formed our organization, they were in the United Way, the very first year. So we have received United Way funding for over 53, some years. So yeah, I've been here 37 and I've seen lots of changes. And I'm happy to kind of see that we're maybe shifting gears again and maybe getting back more into funding agencies. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But so Salina Child Care Association over the years has had child care programs in churches. Is where our history has been. And we were in the First Presbyterian Church for many, many, many years. And one day, one of the things that the United Way used to do is that people just like yourselves would come to our agencies and they'd tour and they'd hear about our agencies. And one day I was sitting at the table talking about us and what our needs were and what we needed to do. And Clay Edmonds, who was the administrator of Salina Regional, goes, you know what? Our employees sure do need infant toddler care. What can you guys help us out with that? We're in the hospital business. We don't want to do child care, but what can we do to work together? Through that partnership and through him just coming as a United Way volunteer, we opened an infant toddler center back in 1990. Across from the hospital, there was a duplex that they were using for new doctors that first came to town. They'd house them there. And we opened the infant toddler center there. And so we started collaborating with the hospital way back then. The surgical hospital decided they wanted to build right there. So we thought, what can we do? We've got to do something with our infant toddler center. We were serving, about 20 infants and toddlers in that building. So they decided it would be economical to pick up the building, move the building across to where we are now, across from the old St. John's Hospital in the Donovan Ear Children's Center. So they moved that building over there, and we thought it wasn't economical to do that. They should have just started from the ground floor. But through that, we started working more with other agencies. We had our preschoolers in the church and our infants and toddlers across town, and we started working more on our early childhood workforce. And we got involved in some of the funding that Lori's talking about. What can we do to retain our staff and to grow quality early childhood in this community? And through that Smart Start, there was a Smart Start grant funding that some of us wrote. And so we wanted to, while we're taking care of our own children in our program, to me and to our board, it's just as important for kids everywhere in our community to be in quality care. So we started partnering more with different agencies, the YMCA, their child care program, Martin Luther King, their child care program. Head Start, we did a lot of collaborative work with Head Start. And we brought in money to use for retention so that we could keep the staff that we had and also build quality. A bunch of my staff, they had never been middle-aged, they had a high school diploma. They got an associate in early childhood through some of this grant funding. And some of them are still with me. And so it did build our workforce. But like everything else, ups and downs, we started losing grant funding. So right now, if you're a parent trying to find childcare in Salina, it is extremely difficult, especially if you have infants and toddlers. Our community does not look like other communities. There are only Salina Child Care and Martin Luther King that have spots for infants, and I define infants from birth through 1. We could have 12 in our program, and we're now housed in the Donovan Near Children's Center, which Salina Regional Health Foundation owns, but was gracious enough to build this program, and we share space with CAPS, Salina Child Care, and then the Infant Child Development Program of the hospital. So we have room for 12 infants right now. We have 6 infants. We have an empty classroom. We have room for, and then Martin Luther King is the other one that provides infant care. And I think last I talked to her, they only have 3 or 4 infants, and they don't have enough staff. We have room in our facility for, 30 toddlers from 1 year to 2.5. I have 9 toddlers right now. There's 2 empty classrooms. We have room for, 50, probably 70, 80 preschool children. We have about 35 or 40. Half of our building is closed right now. We don't have staff, can't find staff. We're like everyone else trying to find staff, and we're in a business that our families can't afford to pay the true cost of childcare. They're just starting out in their careers, just like many of you, and the childcare cost could be extravagant. You can spend more in childcare than you will when you're working later in your career and your kids are going to college. So people are struggling right now, and it's terrible listening to the stories on the phone, people calling in that need care, and then I go, I'll just add you to the wait list, but we can't find staff. United Way dollars over the years have been tremendous for us. Years and years ago, and think of inflation, years and years ago, we had $80,000 that came from United Way every year. We scholarshiped that out. We think it's important that all children in our community have access to quality early childhood education. And so we were scholarshiping that out. We're getting $10,000 right now, and I've got about 2,000 of that's earmarked for scholarships. The need's still there. People still need assistance with childcare, but we just don't have those community dollars that are funding that. We know, like Lori mentioned, it's so important. The research tells us that if you can get kids in a quality early childhood program, we want them to be successful in kindergarten. And so kindergarten readiness is huge in our community. How do you get kindergarten readiness? You support early childhood programs. We will save money in the long term if we put money into our young children now. We had the chance to be at, listening to the Secretary of Education, made a stop, if some of you were there yesterday, making a stop around the state, looking to see what our communities do need from education. And they're definitely recognizing that kindergarten readiness is gonna make a huge difference in our workforce. If we can invest now, we're gonna know. And I can look and see, I can look at a 3-year-old, and I historically been around long enough that I'm gonna see them on the Salina Post thing, on who got arrested. And you can tell from a preschooler what their home life has been. You know, if they don't have support with them, the behavior that they're showing in an early childhood program, and sure enough, those kids are gonna end up and we're paying for it in the long run. So it is important for all of us as a community to see what can we do. I don't know what the answer is with the workforce, because we're no different than anybody else in trying to hire. We're trying to pay some competitive wages, but our parents can't really afford to pay much more. So it is a big dilemma now. We're fortunate that the higher ups understand that early childhood's important, but we never quite seem to get the dollars that we need to go along with it. And so that's been a challenge for us. So I really appreciate all that you guys are doing in your businesses to support the United Way, and that's what it takes. It takes a community of all of us working together to try and see what we can grow and build our